Okay. All right. Welcome to Carolyn Kennedy Library, Dearborn Heights Zoom seminar on PowerPoint. Today we're going to be doing a fairly simple PowerPoint presentation just to get you the idea of the basics of how the system works. So let's get started. This is a thing we print for a handout when we've actually got handouts. And a descriptive of what PowerPoint is, essentially a presentation package used to highlight key points in a speech or informational talk. The best way to use it is get slides to describe key points to give short summaries of what you're discussing as you go. So you can print them as handouts and they can be used as a memory jog by the people you're working with. So today it's just going to be the nuts and bolts of getting simple slides together. Effective presentation is an area of its own, but this should at least get you started. So, oops, slightly laggy machine. Here we have the PowerPoint environment, more or less. The title bar, pretty much the same as any other Windows app. If your presentation has a name, this is where it will be. The tab and ribbon interface. The thumbnail view of the slides you're working on. This is your main editing area. This will have various things depending on what you're doing at the moment, but generally this is where you'll be editing your slides. And down here, if you're going to bother, you can take notes for things you're doing. This doesn't normally get seen in presentation mode. And these are your view and zoom controls for various things. So this is a live PowerPoint, and here are the various elements, notes, and so on. So getting started, as an example, I'm using a simple presentation on old silent films versus modern color films. So the thing you can set for themes and backgrounds, PowerPoint comes with a lot of ready-made themes, so you can probably find something you can use that fits what you're trying to do. In our case, we're going to go over back to PowerPoint, come to design, and the machine's being a bit laggy. Here we go. So now we look and find something suitable. I'm going to pick this theme because the background looks like an old silent movie dialogue or description card that they would drop in between scenes. So, and you can find a lot more by bringing the pull down. So this is everything that's available by default, and there are more things you can pull off the internet if you're so inclined. So the first slide, what we'll do here, click to add title, and yes, just making sure. Now, I did type this in mixed text mode, but the template causes it to go uppercase for this particular presentation. If I change to a theme that supports mixed case, this would automatically go to mixed case. So and you have to deal with typos. So we have our major title and a subtitle. And this is your primary page. This is where you say the overall theme of what your presentation is. So once you've got that in, You can come over to the thumbnail pane, you do a right click and say New Slide, and it will, by default, the first slide in any theme is the major thing. The next slide is automatically a typical presentation that you can mix various other bits of media in, or text, or what have you. There are more complex forms available in any given theme. So, for example, this shows your various options, and we'll come back over here and come down and hover on layout, and this theme has 9 different slides. Title slide, we're currently at what they call title and content. There are section headers, things that do the columns in content in 2 columns. A title only, where you can drop in what you like, a complete blank, and various things. So you have numerous options in most themes. Odds are, for if you don't need a super heavily customized thing, it will work. One of these will work for you. So, coming back, adding lines with animation. First thing we're going to do is go over and actually add lines. So we'll click to add text. And then, because I don't have this memorized as much as I should, right, I'm going to enter some famous silent film stars. I can almost type it. Now, with that in the case, we've got this set up. We're going to do the animation. So, while the box is still highlighted, we have a tab called Animations. So we come over and hit this, and this brings up this ribbon, and this shows various options. This is no animation. This is what just pop up. Here they fade in. This is fly in, and so on. So for this one, we'll just choose fade in. And then you'll notice these numbers. This lists the sequence in which these will appear. And here I've put in a title, which I should have done first, on what this slide covers. So what this will let us do, now that we've done this business with the animations, is if we go into slideshow mode, there are a couple of different ways to do it. The fastest is usually just to tap the F5 key, and we get our first slide. There are a couple of different ways you can jump from slide to slide: right arrow, space bar, or a mouse click. Now, we came to the second one, and this is where the animation kicks in. At first, there's nothing here but your title. If you were discussing silent film stars at this point, you would bring up that among the early silent film stars is Buster Keaton. And then one of the better known was Charlie Chaplin. And another big figure of the day was Roscoe Arbuckle, also called Fatty. And that then ends the slideshow, which you can get out of with escape. So simple animation presentations, you don't have to bother. You can just make them pop up instantly. But this can help keep your attention focused on the most recent thing you've been telling people about. So now, yeah, here's some stray information that there may be some odd problems. If you have issues, you can just try backing out of recent things you've done with the undo function, which, as with most other Windows Tools is here, so you can back up to a point where you know what's going on, and then just pick up from there. So we're going to skip this bit because it was added in to the original and isn't really, it's useful if you were using an older version of PowerPoint. So how to create a sort of fake pop-up effect with a version that couldn't really do that. Now, here's another useful thing. You'll notice here we had multiple slides going, and then suddenly we have a change. What this is it's called a section, and this is a formatting divider. I'm going to right-click on a thumbnail here and say Add Section. Oh, okay. That didn't do what I wanted to, so we're going to undo, and there's a perfect example of where undo helps you. So we'll say New Slide, then Add Section. Okay, so Add Section takes the slide you're on and divides it into its own section. And then once that going, we're going to change to a comparison between black and white and color films. So we're going to go back to Design. I'm going to choose this nice gray background with these kind of radiant angled sunbeam effects. And that didn't work. So we'll try this again. Because the purpose of the section break is to allow you to break. Ah, there we go. I'm not sure why it did that. Maybe I needed to be clicked on this instead. But if this happens to you, you can come back, click on this and try. But now we have a section break. And what this is it lets me change formats and themes and so forth across this boundary. So this is, so when you do a change in your presentation for the, if your major topic is changing and you want a new look, this is how you can do it. So, harking back to our directions, and I'm going to do spot for emphasis here. So we'll come back and type our headings black and white versus color. Now, this doesn't look that fancy just yet, but you can click and drag and highlight one character, and then while you're hovering the character, if you come up, you will get the this highlight. Now, over here is a change in the font color, and whatever the underlying color is at the moment is what it will do. So if you just click it, it'll change it to red. But now I want a new color here. So I'm not going to replicate the sequence from the example, but let's change to come down here, hit this pull down, and we can change to green. And then we can highlight this, come and change that to a blue, do this one, and we'll make that purple. And here we've done a spot color, which we're transitioning, we're not going full bore to things. So the background is color, not black and white, but subtly shaded. And here we're highlighting the color as a way of getting an attention point. Again, all things like, most of the things like this are a bit beyond the scope, but we're getting there. So that having been done, we have our header, and we're going to drop down. We're going to add some clip art. You can add some clip art in photos. Here you'll notice that the slide was still photos versus movies. So I'm going to need to come over and, all right, I've probably forgotten something here. Yes, I have. Yeah, we can, here, we want this to be we want this black and white versus color starter slide to be formatted with one of the other layouts. So I'm coming to layout, and I'm just going to say to content. And what this does now, it gives us these two ready-made spaces. So, and for that matter, yes, we have these bullets, so I chose the wrong thing, but this is where it's handy. If you do that, you can discover you've chosen the wrong thing. You can just go back and change it. In this case, comparison is what we're actually after here. So we will do the column for black and white, if I can keep hitting the right icons. Then we click here. For a couple of things in favor of black and white films. And then we'll come back, and our header is color. We keep checking back. And now we have this slide, which starts with the comparisons. And now we need another slide where we're going to some more details. In this case, still photos versus movies, and a couple of bits of clip art. So we'll come back here. We need a new slide, and it is defaulting to what we had before. But in this case, we don't want the extra header, so I'm going to do layout, come up here, and to content, and I'm going to check this. Yes, I thought so. And now we can do different things. You can get in here and start typing text, or you have inserting clip art with these ready-made icons to get you started. So what we'll do is I'll click this because I want to do a bit of clip art. And over here to the right, this will take a second because my zoom window is blocking this. I'm going to say search for film. And it's going to bring up various kinds of clip art. So now it looks like the clip art I started with has since been replaced, but there's something suitable to begin with. You can click this, and it pops up that. Still photos. And for movies, oops, that was a mistake. So I did a Control Z to undo that, as well as this would have done. And here, I'm going to click in here. We'll do this. And now that is there and confined, and we have our two examples. Yeah, this is different from what I had before because these were both stylized. They might still be in there, but that would take time to find. But you can find all manner of things under clip art if you just want to put in quickie odds and ends. And you put in a word getting your subject, and it will find relevant clip art for you to work with. So, and so that's another way of another format layout and how you can deal with your topic. So if you were discussing this, you can do the comparison. And so there's that. Now, that gives you an idea. Now, transitions. What transitions are is when you jump from slide to slide, it lets you handle, there are different ways, things like sliding and so on. So let's go back. We'll come up here, do transitions, and let's try this one. All right. And this is just how the transition from slide to slide will go. So you can so yeah, this is how you can go from one to another. You don't want to go completely, you don't want to go too overly crazy with different types. I would generally suggest doing one type of transition per section if you're going to be doing that. We'll leave this push there for an example. And then we will do the slideshow and show you how that worked. Here we get our names in. And when we do this again, we suddenly had a jump. Now, this is because an instant jump is the default. So now we come down here and we'll pick another transition. And then we'll do the slideshow again. Here's our silent section. Our names come up as we advance. This did an instant jump, and then that did a tilt. So I will do we'll do that here. There we go. Even I get surprised by these things sometimes. Here we go again. Now, what happened there is the transition went from on the last slide into the slide of the new section, and then just carries through. Now, by default, once you set up a thing on the first slide, it should carry through to the rest of the section. But and if it doesn't, and that's what you want, you can select apply to all, and it will select. Now it says between all slides in the presentation for the current slide. Let me check this and find out if it's going to mess with the setting in the silent. Yes, it did. So you that's a useful thing to remember, is that you may end up having to set transitions on a slide-by-slide basis, and if you do, that will even cross the section boundary. So, but that's another way. If you're going to use different transitions for sections, I would generally keep it per section and make a decision as to how you want the jump to go from one section to the next. In some cases, you might simply want a simple jump cut or no transition between the last slide of one section and the first slide of another. How you do that will be up to you. And again, that's going further than that is really outside the scope. So we've got this. And yeah, there are more options available with the pull down, as is usually the case. So if none of these work for you, you click the pull down and you've got more. For more dynamic things, you can do dissolves and fades and checkerboard effects and so on. So now additional options. We have sound and timing options, which I can't feasibly demonstrate, but it's there. You can pick from the stock sounds in Windows or record a sound. You can do duration and set advanced slide either on mouse click or some timing, and these are, you can adjust the slideshow so that it runs automatically if you like, with timing options and things like that. So that's another option with sound effects and whatnot in your presentation. Manual placement of elements. What we'll do is I'll go back here, get another new slide, and now I want just a nice blank. So you can manually place stuff and do things. For example, a text box, if you've got nothing else that readily fits what you want to do, you can insert text box, draw a box, and then you just drop the text box at the bottom of the slide. Another option you've got is you can insert word art. So let's do this hollow purple lettering. Okay. And then with all these boxes, you have a certain amount of play. This is a rotator handle. You grab this and it will rotate what you want. If you grab somewhere in the middle of things, you can adjust the sizing. And if you grab where it's got all four headers, you can drag the thing around the screen. There we go. So you can place it wherever you like. And there are other effects you can add. So formatting text effects. Let's say 3D rotation. And we'll just do this. And it has now rotated it in an interesting direction. So that gives you some more effects you can play with. So, and there's that. Slideshow, I've been showing you how to do this. You can, there's a pickup here, but it's easiest just to hit the F5 key if you've got one. And the behavior for advancing slides is right arrow or down arrow, page down, or the space bar. They will go in reverse sequence on left arrow, up arrow, page up, or backspace. Home will jump to the first slide and to the last, and so on. And if we do the slideshow here gives you the various options you can play with in terms of making adjustments, different views, starting from the beginning, from the current slide. Play with broadcasting, which is something that we won't get into, but there's that. And with a lot more experience in sound manipulation, you can do things like time your slides on a narration track so that you could actually make a PowerPoint presentation with an audio-video experience that you could email to people and they could watch on their own computers. So, and this has hit the end of the material covered in this section. I'm hoping this gave you some useful information on the basics of putting together a PowerPoint presentation. Most of your stuff will probably be fairly simple, but this should let you get started. So that's it, and thank you for your time.